Hello, nurses, and welcome to the 30-day self-care challenge for nurses. My name is Debbie Lyn Toomey, nurse of over 30 years and owner of Ultimate Healing Journey. I am a health and happiness specialist and speak and train organizations and healthcare workers on topics of mindfulness, happiness, self-care, and resiliency. So this week, we are talking about sleep as a way to support self-care. When I do any type of workshops or trainings, I can't help but add what we do the night before to help us thrive in the workplace. So sleep is a key component that we can really take care of and really honor. So that way we can do our best and feel our best when we are at work. So today we have a speaker guest, and her name is Scherrie Keating, who is also a registered nurse. She is a very gifted speaker and on the topic of diabetes, as well as many other topics. Her title is Certified Diabetes Care and Education Specialist. She is also a CDC National Diabetes Prevention Program Lifestyle Coach and the founder of Diabetes Care Consulting. So today we'll talk about the correlation between sleep and diabetes. Scherrie, thank you so much for being here. Welcome.
Well, first of all, Debbie, thank you so much for inviting me to be part of your 30-day challenge for nurses. I'm so excited to be a part of this, and I love what you're doing, and I know that you're going to benefit so many nurses. So thank you for the work that you're doing, and thank you for inviting me to be a part of it.
Mm-hmm, of course. So I want to ask you before, but I have so many questions for you.
Okay, I have a few answers for you.
Okay, I have written down my notes here because I have so much to ask you. So what is the newest national statistic? Oh my goodness. What is the newest national statistics on diabetes? What's going on out there right now?
Well, you know what? Unfortunately, the news is not good. The statistics just came out and they reflect 2018 data. So the previous statistics reflected 2015 data, and now these reflect 2018 data. So here's the numbers. We had, prior to these new statistics that came out, we had about 30 million people that had type 2 diabetes. The numbers have gone up to 34 million that have type 2 diabetes. Pre-diabetes, the numbers previously were 84 million, and now they're 88 million. The sad news is there was an article that came out in JAMA Pediatrics in December, and now 1 in 5 adolescents and 1 in 4 young adults have pre-diabetes.
Wow.
Yes. Wow. Isn't that staggering and also extremely sad? And if these predictions continue, 1 in 3 will have type 2 diabetes in their lifetime. So we need to do something today. And first of all, I really feel like people need to understand why it's so important to reduce the risk of diabetes, what the risk factors are, and then how sleep factors into all of this.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Wow, that is really scary statistics right there. And I can imagine with stress going up and just, you know, this whole feeling of uncertainty of what's going on in life, right? That people will be comfort eating, and that's going to really impact their health and well-being. So before we go any further, can you share with us what type 2 diabetes is? Because when I was in nursing school, type 2 diabetes was considered the adult onset. And I know that has changed slightly these days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you're absolutely right. When I used to be a real nurse is what my kids called me when I got my hands dirty, but I still am a nurse. I'm just not taking care of patients. I'm more in the education realm now with my company. But type 2 diabetes did used to be a disease of the older generation. But now, unfortunately, as you can see with the statistics, it's trickling down into our adults and our adolescents and young adults. So it's a disease of insulin resistance, and it looks like obesity is a driving factor. So what does insulin resistance mean? It means that we have a pancreas that produces insulin, and its job is to open or unlock the cell door to allow sugar or glucose to go in and be utilized for energy. And so when we are insulin resistant, we are still making insulin. Our organ, the pancreas, is still making insulin, but our body is not utilizing it or able to respond to the insulin properly. So it's not essentially unlocking the cell door. Sugar or glucose is not going into the cell to be utilized for energy. Instead, it is actually going through our bloodstream and attacking our small blood vessels, our eyes, our kidneys, our nerves, and it's leading to a huge epidemic in our country and a lot of complications, decreased quality of life, and premature death, to be honest with you.
Wow.
And it's huge. I mean, look at those numbers. We're talking millions and millions of people that have diabetes, but even more is the people that have pre-diabetes. And so pre-diabetes is a thing, and people need to understand that the time to act is before they get diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. It's the time to act is when they have pre-diabetes. So what happens during pre-diabetes is the early stage of insulin resistance. So you can be screened, tested, and you can reduce your risk by over half if you make some simple lifestyle changes.
Wow.
So, and like you said, this is a very stressful time that people are going through. And so, you know, eating and exercise habits and sleep habits are all being challenged right now. So we have to make a concerted effort to really think about self-care and to take this time that we are being at home to really be prioritizing our health and to make those simple lifestyle changes of eating healthier, getting some exercise, and we can really have an impact on prevention of type 2 diabetes.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, I was reading somewhere, the sleepfoundation.org, and they were saying how sleep deprivation really puts people at high risk for diabetes, high blood pressure, obesity, depression even, you know, so to be able to think about and use sleep as a part of our assessment, self-assessment, or even assessing our patients, right, and our clients, adding that into the picture to really figure out, are these people going to be at risk for pre-diabetes perhaps, right? And maybe changing some habits before we get that diagnosis, right? So, you know, what are some, can you tell us a little bit about the connection between sleep and diabetes?
Well, you know, it's interesting because the list of risk factors didn't include sleep. So I speak on prevention of diabetes and type 2 diabetes management, and I don't have sleep actually on my list of risk factors. And then when we had this conversation and you had asked me to speak on sleep, I thought, well, let me do some research. And wow, it was really eye-opening because I know that sleep is important for our health overall, but I didn't understand that there was a, you know, evidence-based connection between diabetes risk, obesity, and sleep. So the risk factors for diabetes that are currently known are family history. So your mother, father, sister, brother, the primary relatives increase your risk. Certain ethnicities are at higher risk. History of high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease, of course, being overweight or obese, and then lack of regular exercise, gestational diabetes, smoking, and now sleep. So the studies are showing that too little sleep, too much sleep, obstructive sleep apnea, and a disruption in our biological clock all increase the risk of type 2 diabetes. So when we sleep too little, a lot of the research is based on not getting adequate amount of sleep. And so that means, so what is not an adequate amount of sleep? Less than 5 to 6 hours a night. And what it is showing is that it affects our endocrine system. It affects the way we metabolize carbohydrates. It actually decreases insulin production, insulin sensitivity, or the use of insulin, and that leads to that insulin resistance, which then leads to prediabetes and type 2 diabetes, obesity. And also what I found out is it also increases inflammation. Diabetes is associated with cardiovascular disease, heart disease, and inflammation. So it drives those kind of problems. So having too little sleep does a lot of damage and increases our risk. So on the other hand, too much sleep is also a risk factor. Who knew, right? Who thought sleeping too much was a bad thing?
I
But
know.
the connection with too much sleep is interesting. There's not as much data, but what I found out, it's not really the too much sleep, it's really the reason why you're sleeping too much is the cause of the connection between too much sleep and diabetes and obesity risk. So a lot of the reasons, and one of the major ones is obstructive sleep apnea. But because obstructive sleep apnea it disrupts your sleep cycles. And what happens is you have lack of oxygen, it raises your blood pressure, and you don't get adequate sleep. So during the day, you're tired and you're sleeping more. And it also has been found to correlate to higher A1C levels. And A1C is actually a 3-month blood test looking backwards on how well your blood sugar has been controlled. So having obstructive sleep apnea actually leads to insulin resistance, which leads to prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. So other reasons that too much sleep could lead to diabetes could be, why would you sleep too much? You're depressed. You are overweight. You're not getting enough exercise. You have some medical problems that may be contributing to too much sleep. So poor lifestyle habits. So all of the things that increase your risk of diabetes actually are connected to, a lot of them are connected to this too much sleep data. Does that make any sense?
It does make sense. And it makes me wonder which came first, the chicken or the egg, right?
There you go. And that's a question that we don't have the answer for.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. Which is driving which?
Right.
Is it the risk factors that are driving the too much sleep, or is it the too much sleep that are driving the risk factors? Does that, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
So you're absolutely right. And, having obstructive sleep apnea is an independent risk for diabetes. So regardless of whether you have any other risk factors for diabetes, if you have obstructive sleep apnea, you are at risk for diabetes. So what you need to do is you need to be tested and you need to be treated for obstructive sleep apnea. And I know there's a lot of people that are walking around with obstructive sleep apnea that are not being treated, and that is really increasing their risk of type 2 diabetes. So it's really important that when they're able to go for testing, routine testing, and to go and see their doctors again, that they get tested for obstructive sleep apnea. It's the person whose wife or spouse says to them, I noticed that you're waking up snoring loudly in the middle of the night, or I can't sleep because you're snoring, and then I noticed when I watch you, you're not breathing. So and overweight, short necks, large shirt sizes. Those are the people that really need to be screened for obstructive sleep apnea.
Yes, definitely. Because what happens is when you're not getting enough sleep, what we get is these micro sleeps during the day. So micro sleeps is when your eyes might be open, but you're so tired that you're not really processing what's happening. And what happens is they have found that when people are drowsy sleeping, there are evidence or occurrences where we have micro sleeps, and that's when all of a sudden you're kind of running through, as you're driving, running through the red light, or you notice that all of a sudden your car is starting to swerve. So those have been, the micro sleeps have been linked to accidents, car accidents, when people are drowsy sleeping. And nurses who are shift workers, we work long hours, whether it is 8 hours, but sometimes, we never know if the staffing level is low. There's been sick calls that you are mandated to stay longer than your actual scheduled shift. And what happens is it impacts our overall energy level, right? And if we do that consistently enough, then it's going to impact our sleep, which again, if we do that enough, it's going to impact everything else in our life, the way we eat, our choices, the way we sleep, right? So it's just so interesting. And as for us nurses and any shift workers out there, we need to realize that the profession we're going into, especially if it's going to require a rotation, a day-evening, a day-night rotation, or even permanent nights, knowing your internal biological clocks is very important. And also knowing that we are getting into a profession that's going to put us at risk to, harming our own health and well-being. So we should be on top of our own health and well-being to prevent any types of risk factors like diabetes, right?
Right. And it's interesting you brought up the circadian rhythm and the biological clock, because there are actual studies that link disruptions in our biological clock in terms of eating and sleeping patterns and diabetes risk. So we definitely need to get the recommended amount of sleep. So I was like, so what is the recommended amount of sleep? Because too little sleep would be less than 5 or 6 hours. Too much sleep is considered more than 8 hours in terms of diabetes risk. So what they're saying is the optimal amount of sleep should be between 7 and 8 hours daily. And so if we can get the recommended amount of sleep, and we're also prioritizing healthy eating, we're lowering our saturated fat in our diet. So we're eating more plant-based, we're eating less, animal products, and we're getting lots of fruits and vegetables. I love My Plate because My Plate really is a great tool for nurses themselves, as well as their families, children, and patients. Have you heard of My Plate?
Yes, I have. It's great.
So, yeah, My Plate, you take a 9-inch plate, which most of our plates are bigger than that, and we divide it in half, and then we put half on one side is fruits and vegetables. The other half we're dividing into a quarter, and we're doing a lean protein. We're doing whole grains and a low-fat dairy. We're not getting rid of any food groups. We are incorporating them, but we're making healthy choices in each of the food groups. So if we're using healthy eating choices and we're getting our exercise, which for diabetes prevention, the recommendation is 5 days a week for 30 minutes, or a total of 150 minutes a week. Now that sounds like a lot, but the science shows we can break that 30 minutes down into 10-minute increments. So we can do 10 minutes of moderate exercise 3 times a day and get the same benefit as if we were doing a 30-minute workout. So everybody has, especially right now, 10 minutes of time to get a moderate workout. You don't have to run the marathon. You don't have to buy equipment. I always tell my patients that God gave you 2 feet. All you need to do is go for a walk. And it's a great way to reduce stress. And the nurses and all the healthcare workers that are working so hard right now, and thank you to all of them on the front lines of everything that's going on, you have to take care of yourself. So, making healthy meals to bring with you to work. When you get a break, getting off the unit if possible and going for a little 10-minute walk. Starting the day off, parking your car further and walking, that 10 minutes, getting that 10 minutes during the day, and then walking that 10 minutes back to the car, and then going home, making sure you're taking time to take care of yourself and getting that 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night is going to be crucial to your future health. It's small changes that have huge impact.
Definitely. I also want to add, giving ourselves permission to take little naps, even at work. Take your breaks, and, maybe establishing some sort of an understanding amongst your peers that, I'm going to take a nap. I'm going to use my break for that. And please, I'm going to set my phone or my clock to wake me up. But if you notice that I am, going over the time frame, please wake me up. But if we could kind of maybe establish some sort of an understanding amongst our colleagues that, you want to use your break the best way possible, whether it's exercising, going off the floor, getting something to eat, or getting a nap. That's going to help nourish our whole well-being, right? So thank you so much for all these great advice. So what is the one thing that you can think of? You told us to bring snacks and to get sleep. Is there anything else that you would recommend for nurses who could be watching us right now and saying, yeah, right.
Now,
you two don't know what we're talking. You don't know what you're talking about. We're working out there in the trenches, and you two are talking about diabetes and sleep. Yeah, right. We have work to do. So what can we share with them that's going to be that golden nugget that they could take away from this particular interview?
Well, I can tell you, I'm a terminal cancer survivor, and I can tell you that I'm all about the why. And why the why is so important to me is because first of all, I learned as a terminal cancer survivor that if you don't have your health, what do you have? And if you don't have your health, how can you care for other people, right? You have to take care of yourself, and then you're able to take care of other people. So the why for me is the reason why you want to prioritize your health, whatever that may be. When I had cancer, my life changed dramatically. I hit the lowest point in my entire life, and I really lost my motivation to take care of myself. And until the doctor said something to me one day that woke me up, I would have continued down that spiral. And I think with all the craziness in this world, we have to take time to take a breath and to think about that reason. And what he said to me that was so life-changing was, he said, Scherrie, your attitude is going to kill you before your cancer does. And for me, that was like, whoa, like, first of all, I was so angry that he would say that when he wasn't living in my shoes, and we're not living in the front line shoes of those nurses and healthcare workers either. But sometimes you just have to take a breath and think about, what is my attitude? I understand that you're telling me to do all these things, but life is crazy and I have to do all these things. But just sit back and think about why you need to take care of yourself. What is your why? What is your motivation? Because when all of this is over, you still have to be healthy. And so think about what is going to drive you to be motivated to take some of these tips that we've shared with you and incorporate them into your life despite the craziness of the world. Because if you don't have your health, you have nothing. And someone said to me once, your health is your wealth. And I love that, because really your health, without it, what do you have? You can have all the wealth and all the things in the world, but without your health, you have nothing. So during this crazy time, what I would say is, take care of yourself. Find your why and use it to motivate you to make these small recommendations to make lifestyle changes during all the chaos. And so that when it's all over, you remain healthy and lower your risk of not only diabetes, but all of its associated complications and other chronic diseases. So that would be my tip, is you're important and you're worth it. And take care of yourselves. And thank you, nurses and frontline workers. I have a brother who's a cardiologist who's in the midst of all of this. I have a daughter-in-law who's working in the ICU. So I have loved ones in this, and I understand, and I talk to them, and they're exhausted. So I try to encourage self-care. It's so important. So even one small change makes a significant impact in your health in the future. So take care of yourself, find your why, and stay healthy. And thank you to all of them.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Scherrie. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That's very sound advice. Always knowing your why is so important. It's going to help drive you, pick you up when you're down. It's going to help remind you what you're there for, right? And I always say that self-care for nurses is almost like that forgotten self-care plan. It's the forgotten self-care plan that we don't even think about when we're working. We need to kind of add ourselves to our assignment during the day, so that way we can make sure that we are taking care of that person, which is us, the nurse, the professional. So understanding your why, so important, very, very valuable. So I want to thank you so much, Scherrie, for your knowledge and also sharing, your diabetes, your time with us, your expertise and inspiration. I want to thank you. So how can people learn more about you? Do you have a website? Can you share that with us?
Sure. My company is Diabetes Care with a K Consulting. And my website is diabetescare.com. I can be also reached through email, diabetescareconsulting@gmail.com. My company offers educational programs. So when all of this, craziness is said and done, you can go to my website on my events page, and hopefully a lot of my programs will be rescheduled. And, I speak on helping people prevention of diabetes, management of type 2 diabetes, type 3 diabetes of the brain. And then I'm also an ageless grace educator. And so I have programming on brain health and incorporate ageless grace. So we need to take care of not only our body, but our brain. And so definitely, check out my website for any events. And I offer CEUs, community program, corporate wellness. So you know what, I want to make a difference. And I know that together we can all make a difference. So I know you're trying to make a difference. I'm trying to make a difference. And all the nurses out there are working hard to make a difference in the lives of many. And if we do it together, we're going to be successful.
Yeah, we got this. We got this.
Yeah, we do.
Thank you so much again, Scherrie. This is Debbie Lyn Toomey. I want to thank all of you nurses out there who can take the time and took the time to watch this interview. Let us know if you have any questions. And again, thank you so much, Scherrie, Keating. And I wish everybody out there, all the nurses out there, a wonderful day. And remember to take care of you. Bye-bye.